Hey, I'm Greg Mann from Greater Orlando Realty, and welcome back to the GMANN Show. Have you ever thought about what it's like to stay awake for 24 hours? Well, let me ask you this question. How about staying awake for 24 hours and racing in the Rolex 24? I want to introduce you to my guest today, Ryan Dalziel, IMSA driver, championship driver. Welcome, Ryan. Thanks for attending the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Ryan, let's just start off with this. How do you actually even start to get into racing? When did that first come into your life? When?
It was clear from a young age that I was absolutely useless at any other sport. As my dad would tell me, I had no coordination. But my dad was actually a successful baker in Scotland.
Yeah.
And growing up, he was a car fanatic. He always had some kind of fun weekend toy. I remember him having E-Type Jags back in the day.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And then I remember he built one, and that's, I think, where my addiction started a little bit with cars. Was he was building a kit in the garage, and I was really into taking things apart, so I figured I'd be able to help him put this thing together. And it kind of just snowballed from a hobby, a passion of cars into go-karts. And my dad was a very, very busy guy, but it was kind of our thing together that, you know, my dad would always make time on the weekends and we'd go to the kart track, and, you know, it was just fun.
So fun. He basically was like your support team. You went out and raced. You probably fixed the karts yourself.
I think more than anything, it was he was kind of living his youth a bit through me. He didn't get time to do this, and no, it started just as a fun, you know, father-son hobby. My brother was involved as well at that time. And then before you know it, you know, I'm 3-4 years into racing go-karts, and all of a sudden I get scouted by a local team that wanted to take me and go and do, you know, national and international stuff. So started in a really small town called Larkhall in Scotland, near to where I grew up. And then by the time I was, you know, 14, 15, I was traveling over Europe racing go-karts. That's
amazing. Now, just so people know, you've won some of the biggest races. Le Mans 24 champion, Daytona 24, Sebring 12. What else have you won that's not on the radar?
You know, I'm very fortunate that I've got to even compete in these races.
Yes.
This Daytona is my 18th consecutive.
That's amazing.
Which makes me feel old. But I guess I started sports car racing at a pretty young age. You know, every young driver wants to do IndyCar and Formula One. I tried that route. It didn't work. So I'm very fortunate to have this career. But I mean, I've won some good stuff. I won. You know, I've won Petit Le Mans a couple of times, which is another big one in Atlanta up there in Braselton, Georgia. I've got to compete in the Spa 24-hour race, which is probably one of the biggest races in the world.
Yeah.
But you know, I've checked all the boxes, I would say, of what I would want to win.
Yeah.
Bathurst is a race, a 12-hour race in Australia that
was just recently too.
Just happened.
Yeah.
It's always the week after Daytona.
Yeah.
A lot of drivers, you know, get the opportunity to, you know, do a 24-hour race and then jump on a plane for 14 hours and then go do a 12-hour race.
That's grueling.
Sounds terrible. But it's probably the only one that's I've not ticked a box yet.
So have you raced it, or you've never
raced it.
Wow.
Come close a few times with some different teams, but it's actually quite hard. I mean, having a good solid career in your country of, you know, wherever you live is quite a lot easier to get work than it is to try and get work somewhere else. So it's hard to convince an Australian team to hire a driver who races in North America.
Yeah.
You know, and although I'm from Scotland originally, I don't race in the UK anymore because my career has mainly been on this side of the pond.
Yeah. Now, what's the biggest difference? You've raced Indy. Open wheel racing, completely different from what you do now. Can you just explain to the layman what the big difference really is?
There's probably not many comparisons, to be honest. I mean, obviously, in IndyCar racing, one driver, shorter races. You don't have to worry about changing drivers on pit stops. You know, the pit stops themselves are quite similar to what we do between, you know, every time we come into the pits, we do 4 sets of tire, or 4 new tires and fuel. But it's a very different culture. It's a different world. I mean, I was shocked when I went from an IndyCar background to sports cars. I mean, it blew my mind, in all honesty, that I liked it more than what I was doing.
That's an interesting comment, because why did you like it more? Is it because it's more relevant to the average person, or is it just the actual type of racing?
I think for me, in all honesty, my IndyCar career was short-lived. I was probably a little bit bitter about that.
Oh, okay.
I'd worked for, most of my life to try and get the opportunity to race at that level, and I didn't get to do it in a competitive car. And so I went from an uncompetitive, first IndyCar season to a very competitive sports car team.
Yes.
And so I think to drop myself initially into race wins straight away at the highest level. My first ever sports car race was the 12 Hours of Sebring.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind. Then to get to go to Le Mans, I got to Le Mans my first time in 2010, I think it was. And although the car barely lasted the start of the race, the experience of being there and actually, surrounding yourself in these driver meetings with guys that you've idolized, even in a different discipline. The first time you get to go to like a Rolex 24 driver meeting or a Le Mans 24 driver meeting, you're looking around at these guys that are legends to you. You
probably can't concentrate on what's going on because you're looking around at all the guys. But so let's just talk. Daytona 24's just done. Rolex 24's just done. Sorry. You've been very successful in it. You had an issue this year. Talk me through like the beginning of the race. Not so much the race, but the whole race week, the build up, what you're really involved with doing through the week, and how that whole works. The whole thing works out.
So for me, it's my local race. I live in Orlando here. Yeah. It's definitely become my adopted home track. It's nice that most of the stuff we do from November to the end of January, preparing for Rolex, is local to me. I get to sleep in my own bed.
That's nice.
So we do a lot of trips up there. We usually test November, December. We actually, as a team, did the historic 24 race back in December as a preparation, just to get some seat time for the car. And then, the first couple of weeks in January is pretty slow. And then once we get into, we have the road, which is the practice session the week before. So we basically have Thursday the week before through the following Sunday is pretty jam-packed. We're not on track every day, but we're at track every day for different, whatever's needed events or media.
Now this year, it was the biggest crowd of all time. I've been to many of them too, and actually it was the nicest weather too for quite some time. The thing I enjoy about it for a fan is that you can get down to the track, you can walk the track, you can walk the pitch, you can meet the drivers, you can kind of almost, feel what you're feeling to some degree. And I remember seeing you just probably 5 minutes before the track's cleared, and I don't know if you was the first driver in the car at the time, but what's going through your mind at that point as a racing driver?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that IMSA and the Rolex 24 has become so successful, I think, is the access that the fans can get. There's none of these special passes needed. It's not who you know. You can go online and you can buy, a pass that will get you up close to the cars and the drivers on the start grid. It's cool for me. I mean, 18 years, it's nice to see how much it's grown. And it's hard to fill a place like Daytona.
Yes.
And so when we see the grandstands actually starting to look like they have spectators in them, although it's not NASCAR Daytona 500 crowds yet, I think it'll get there. I mean, Sebring is always at capacity. Le Mans 24, I think it's 300,000 people.
That's amazing.
So the growth is there, and I still think it's the iconic race for sports car racing in North America. Luckily for me, I don't start often in the races. My teammate Dwight started Daytona, so when you met me, I was pretty relaxed.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if I could go have a little nap before the race started. But also, I think when you do this long enough, I think that the more experience you get, the more relaxed you get.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer in, mental fatigue is physical fatigue. So trying to keep myself as relaxed as I can. I mean, I definitely. When it's time to go back to the pits and put your helmet on, usually you get a little bit of goosebumps, but I've done it long enough.
Now, when I passed my driving test in England, I always remember the instructor saying, hey, just remember this. You can only drive as fast as you can think. And I thought, that's kind of a weird little thing for instructors to say, I've just passed my test. But I think it's a true saying. I mean, you've got to be thinking, you're not just watching the car in front, you're watching so much, you're looking forward, you're in a certain part of the circuit, you're trying to work out, should I pass the guy now? What is going through your mind, just for a lap, for instance?
Yeah, I tell a lot of people, when you asked me before we started, like, how grueling is 24 hours?
Yeah.
And I don't ever leave Daytona feeling physically tired. I feel mentally just drained. We had 61 cars on the track, different varied speeds. I think my head is like a 360-degree camera at times, because you're constantly looking, faster cars behind, slower cars in front, guys spinning off, cars coming out the pits that are, trying to get up to speed. There's not a lap passes that you don't interact with somebody on track.
Yeah.
And Le Mans is very different to that, because Le Mans is so long. It's the track is so long with the same amount of cars.
Yes.
There can be times at Le Mans in the night where you can't see another headlight or taillight.
Yeah.
And it's very peaceful and almost a little bit eerily creepy at times.
Wow, yeah.
But Daytona is non-stop, just trying to avoid everybody else. And you're trying to basically navigate your way through I-4 traffic, I say.
Yeah.
I always say the most dangerous part for me at Daytona is driving to and from the track on I-4.
So just so we can get like an idea of the speed you're doing, you see the drivers come down the back, they're on the back straightaway, you're coming around and into the tri-oval. What sort of speed are you doing down the tri-oval?
Varies in classes. The fastest class is GTP, which they're probably touching just around that 200, 205 miles an hour.
Wow.
LMP2, which is why I drive, is the second fastest. We're at that 190 to 195-ish level. Yeah, and they try and separate it so that passing becomes a little easier between the classes.
Yeah.
And then the GT cars are probably about 180 or 185.
So for people that don't watch this type of race or have got some interest in that, there's really 5 kind of races in one.
Yeah.
That's what intrigues me, because you're watching these cars flying by and you're thinking, oh my gosh, and when you first go, you don't know what to look at. I actually pick on certain cars to watch. I was your 18 car, watching that obviously, and then suddenly you're off the radar. When did you start having problems with the car this year?
So we actually were having problems prior to the race with the clutch, and from about 2 or 3 hours in, we had no clutch pedal.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so it's not as bad as it sounds, because
Yeah.
the only time we use the clutch is when we stop for a pit stop.
Okay.
Unfortunately, one of our drivers got tagged with the GT car, and we ended up having to do a pretty lengthy 3-point turn because we had no clutch.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
that was kind of the start of at least where we lost laps. Then we were on maximum attack. We got ourselves all the way back up to 1 lap down. The car we had just passed on track for position was the car that ended up winning the race.
Oh yeah.
So the car was really fast. Drivers were all doing their job. The clutch we fixed under one of the yellows.
So that was good. Because there wasn't too many yellows this year.
Wasn't too many yellows, and we lost. We took a couple of laps under yellow to fix it. So, we had the spin with another car, and then we had the clutch failure. Then we fixed the clutch, and so I think at one point we were 8 laps down.
Okay.
We got back to 1 lap down.
That's phenomenal.
And that was still, I think, 7 hours to go at that point. So we were in good shape, and then eventually the motor decided it was
Enough's
not
enough.
happy with us and decided to blow a hole at the side of itself.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a pretty nasty clear up.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. So, as a driver, you're there in the pits, the team's there, it's exciting, everything's going on. You're out of the car. What's your plan? Do you sit in the pits and watch the cars go by, boom, 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 boom? Are you back in your motorhome? Are you relaxing? How are you prepping for when you're going to get into that car?
Yeah, it's a good question, because everybody has something different that works for them. And, if I know I'm getting back in, let's say I go, my teammate's going to go in, we call each stint a stint. We have double stints as 2 stints.
How long do they last?
So this year about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And what that means is that's how much fuel we can hold.
Okay.
So a stint is basically like filling your car up at the gas station.
Yep.
You run it till it's empty, you go back, fill up again. So we would try and do double or triple stints, which would be 3 tanks of fuel, 2 tanks of fuel, or a single tank of fuel. Depending on when you know your back end changes what you do next.
Yeah.
For me, as long as I have a couple of hours out the car, typically we'll be in the car an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah.
A couple of hours we'd be able to be out the car before we have to be back in the pits. So for me, it's food right away, shower, and then maybe grab 30 minutes sleep if you can. It's hard to sleep. I mean, I don't often sleep until maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, try and grab a 30-minute nap, and then back to the pits and rinse and repeat.
Well, I always, when you come under the tunnel, when you see the tent city there, I always think, certainly on that first corner, how do these people get any sleep? Because those cars are loud, no doubt about it. And, when you're in the car, is it that loud in the car as well?
It's loud, but a lot of the time, the loudest time in the car is when you're coming up on a car that's really loud, like the Porsches, for example.
Yes.
The 911s are notoriously very loud.
Okay.
When we're running past them, that's louder than what's inside our car. So the P2 car is fairly loud.
Yeah.
But it's also, I've driven cars that are quite quiet. For years I drove a different championship in a Mercedes, and the Mercedes was a big engine, low RPM, lots of torque, and you could hear every rock or stone or gravel, and it was almost too quiet for me. I like having some raw noise in there.
So the series that you're racing is not just endurance racing. You do have 3-hour races as well. So how long is the season? How many races? How many races do you compete in? Do you do the whole season?
Yeah, so we do, IMSA does, I think, 12 or 13 events throughout the year. And each class usually misses 1 or 2 events. So I think this year we do 9 events total.
Okay.
In IMSA, we have 24 hours of Daytona, 12 hours of Sebring are the 2 biggest events. Yes. We have the 10-hour race at the season finale in Road Atlanta, Georgia. And then most of the stuff in between, other than a 6-hour race, is our standard 2-hour 45-minute races. And the 2-hour 45-minute races are 2 drivers.
Okay.
I'm one of the drivers in the full season lineup. The 6-hour race, the 12 and the 10, we do 3 drivers. Daytona, the 24, we do 4 drivers.
So it's a big operation. You got a lot of drivers, a lot of moving parts. How quickly do you change seats? Because you have an individual seat that's fitted to you, so you got to get your seat out, the other guy's seat in. How long does all that really take in a pit stop? Because when you're up in that stadium, you can't see what's really going on.
Yeah, it's you saw how small the car is, especially the cockpit of a prototype. A good stop for us, which includes stationary, driver out, changing the seat, driver in, tightening the buckles. We have a 6-point harnesses.
Yeah.
All buckles have to be in and the belts have to be tight per the rules. We can do a good stop in 18 seconds.
Wow, that's impressive.
The way the rules work, the driver is actually the quickest part of it. Fuel and tires, we get audited based on the fuel, so we can't fill any faster than like 38, 40 seconds.
So that dictates a pit stop, basically.
Exactly, which is good. It keeps, our team is pretty well funded, so we have lots of full-time guys. We train a lot with the guys on pit stops. But also I've driven for many teams that are underfunded and, weekend warriors, we call them, where they have weekend or weekday jobs and they come and help race teams. So, not having the same equipment or maybe the same level of experience, it tries to level the playing field.
Now, when you said weekend warriors, that brings up a question. Le Mans 24, you have the gentleman driver. Mm-hmm. So can you explain to the layman what the gentleman driver is?
So LMP2 actually is mandatory in the rules. We have to have a gentleman driver. So a gentleman driver is a driver who earns his living and his profession in another means of business. So
someone like me.
Right. Yeah. So my teammate for the full season is a successful tech guy. Mm-hmm. Got himself into racing because he was passionate about it, and these guys are basically trying to do the best possible job they can. They don't want to be professionals. Yeah. They know that at this point in life they're not going to be. They want to be the best of the gentleman drivers.
Got ya.
And they have their own individual awards and championships. Yeah. And there's a lot of incentives, one of which is in LMP2 and IMSA, the winning gentleman driver gets an invite to Le Mans 24.
That's amazing.
So that's a pretty big incentive for these guys to compete against each other. So But yeah, I mean, these guys come from all walks of life. You know, car dealers, tech guys, real estate guys.
And they've probably got a different driving style than the professional driver. What I'm interested in with a professional driver is that you guys know how to drive. You know how to get the power on. You know when to do it. It's not just a case of let me slam the accelerator down and go. Can you just give us a bit of insight? How did you become quick?
Oh, I mean, I had very good, let's say, teachers, mentors, and I think I had some natural talent. I do believe that there is a natural talent that comes with sport. My dad was initially the guy who taught me, and then once he realized that I was maybe above his level, I had coaches, which most young drivers do nowadays. It wasn't until I came to the United States. I came here for a scholarship on it was when I was trying to do the IndyCar route, and I came in to race one of the junior formulas called Road to Indy now. And I had this Canadian mentor that, still a good friend to this day, a guy called David Embringham. And I think in that phase of my career, that was in 2003 and 4.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get to that next level. And he's the guy that I think probably taught me the most about how to be fast and be smooth. That was also his thing.
Smooth's the word, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, so we'll be back in a few minutes. Hey, we're just going to take a quick break. Come and join me again in a few minutes with Ryan Dalziel. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot more. We're going to talk about his local life here and his driving coaching school. So keep watching. We'll be right back.
Managing your investment property is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Sign up at GoRent123.com. 2. Let Greater Orlando Realty handle everything for you when it comes to managing your property. From qualifying tenants to collecting rent, processing maintenance requests, and everything in between. 3. Sit back, relax, and count all that money you're making. Earning passive income on your property is as easy as 1, 2, 3 with Greater Orlando Realty. Visit GoRent123.com today.
Hey, I'm Greg Mann from Greater Orlando Realty. Welcome back to the GMANN Show. More race car talk with Ryan Dalziel. Ryan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You chose to live in Central Florida, and for obvious reasons, I guess it's a great place to live. We've got some fantastic beaches. We've got great things to do. But it's central too for your race car lifestyle. How long have you lived here?
It's actually an interesting story. So when I first came to the U.S., I won this scholarship to race in what was called Formula Atlantic back then.
Yeah.
And the team I was driving for was based in Columbus, Ohio. So they had me all set up. I had an apartment there near the shop, and I jumped on a plane and I packed my shorts and t-shirts and my flip-flops and landed in Columbus, Ohio in February. And realized that was not for me. The only other place in the US I knew was Disney World, right? So we'd come family vacations almost every year was kind of where we came. And so my parents were actually in Orlando at the same time that I was there. And so I was like, I can't live here. This is not going to work. So I ended up coming back, meeting them for vacation for a couple of weeks, and then that's where I just decided to stay there.
Yeah,
it made sense for me. Family comes and visits.
Yeah,
everybody wants to come to Disney World. So
everyone wants to be.
I never have to go home.
Yeah,
they all come here, and I get to see a majority of my family and friends.
So that's cool, but it's central too. We've got a great airport here, so you can get away and do all your race stuff here and there. What's your favorite thing to do in Central Florida? Because I love eating out, I love going to the beaches. What do you like doing?
Yeah, all those reasons. One thing again I meant to say is it is so central to what I do. We, especially in we call it the off season, when we're done with races in October, November, when we start again in January, most of what we do is in Florida based on the weather. So our team's based in Indy, but we test in Florida. So that was also just a nice advantage just to live here. But I've lived here since 2002, 2003.
Okay.
Started in downtown Orlando when I was young and single.
Yeah.
Met my now wife Jessica, and we got really mature, and we decided we're going to move out to Windermere. So we got married, moved out there, realized that was not for us, and we moved back to Winter Park, which we've been living there since 2014. We've been there now. So
that's nice.
we like all the stuff that you mentioned. It's a great place for food, for activities, outdoor stuff.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
We definitely are foodies. We like to try all the new stuff, and then we got our go-to favorites.
Yeah.
And I'm big in the car scene, obviously. So we have a good. A nice couple of car clubs here, and enjoy doing that the weekends. The few weekends I get home, I'm at least trying to go to a car show and see some friends.
Well, we first kind of met at Kids for Cars, and I thought he was an amazing character because, you had this AMG Black, you'd just gotten it, it's a phenomenal car, you was open to talking about the car, you was just enjoying the day, and you say you get to a lot of those shows. Do you still have the Black?
I don't have the Black. I traded my Black on a Ferrari F8 last year.
Nice.
So I was pretty excited about that. But the Black Series was phenomenal. I waited a long time for it.
Yeah.
And I drove for Mercedes at that time.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get one. I enjoyed it. But maybe 1,000 miles on it. I do. Worst thing for me is people that get these amazing cars and they put them in the garage. You drive them at a car show. They clean them there. They drive them home, and that's it. You'll see mine driving at Publix. If I have no problem parking a car.
Yeah.
I feel safe doing it. I'm smart where I park. But at the end of the day, I like to drive it. I wouldn't take it to the airport. I mean, that's a little far, but the Black Series is very cool.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing about any car, you should drive it and enjoy it. I mean, what's the point of having it just to look at it? There's no point, is there? The thrill of having the car is driving it. You do a really nice thing, and I'm sure that it's something that new drivers or young drivers need help with. You've actually got a Racecar coach program. You established it. When did you exactly establish that?
Right around the end of 2018. And so what it is it's racecarcoaches.com. And what I wanted to do was, I do a lot of coaching on the side, as do a lot of drivers.
Yeah.
It's no different to football players going into coaching. So I've enjoyed, the other aspect of my career, which is helping young guys, older guys, car enthusiasts, whatever it is. But I also found a lot of horror stories of people that I worked with that had bad experiences. So my plan was really just and it was kind of a joke sitting with my wife one night, and I'm like, man, I could do like a website like Yelp.
Yeah.
And we could vet the drivers, and if they're on there, at least we vet them, and then they can get rated. And so, it started in 2018. It originally was a paid membership where the coaches had to pay to be on it, and then when COVID happened, I opened it up to free memberships, and I've kept it that way. I don't do it for money on it. I do it because I really want people to have good resources, and find the right people, because like most industries, it's hard to know the good and the bad.
Surely
is. And
yeah.
I just wanted to have a safe place that guys could find, and and you do it by location, which is a nice, save some expenses on travel.
So how does that work? Is there like multiple drivers or coaches in each state? And so I live in Florida. I can click on the site, and you're there. You're one of the coaches. I can choose you to be my coach and just come along and talk me through like a normal day for someone that joins the club.
Yeah, I mean I would say it's for the very, very inexperienced gentleman drivers, let's say, where they don't know what resources to go to. They maybe don't watch racing on TV, so it's very easy to contact somebody through Instagram or Facebook these days. But somebody who really has no clue where to start with this, a guy that maybe just bought himself a 911, did a driving school, and now wants to try and figure out how to be a little bit better or safer at it. The easiest thing to do is to do it by location. You can do Florida, or you can do your zip code, and it'll pull up the options and contact them individually. And then, I've never wanted to be involved in anybody's finances or their business. Yeah. So the way we've done it is you contact them directly through the site, and then we wash our hands at that point. And
so you're like the connection to it.
That's pretty much it. Just a tool.
So I guess then they go off, the person goes off to a circuit, meets the coach, they do ride-alongs or drive-alongs on their own, I guess, and they get mentored as to certain things?
It depends what you're looking for, right? So most of the coaching I do, I coach mainly race cars. So I'm coaching guys that maybe want to do some amateur racing, or maybe they want to step up to an IMSA type program at some point. And so I've one kind of small group of guys that I've coached now for the last 3-4 years, and to be honest, that consumes most of my time. I probably do more days coaching now in a season than I do racing. And it's also a good business at the same time.
Well, that's good, because you're paying things forward. I like that. Just let me pull you back to your actual racing career a little bit. This year, moving forward, Rolex is done. Sebring's next. You'll be at Le Mans?
Not as of now, no.
Okay. I hope you are there. That'd be great if you could be.
You never
there.
know.
Yeah. Last time I spoke to you, you was out in Dubai. Did you race out in Dubai?
No, my brother lives there, and I was out there spending my 40th birthday.
Oh,
so yeah, that's a whole different podcast. That one.
Yeah, it certainly is. Now, you've got to have a favourite driver that you race against. When you're out on that circuit, are the drivers you really want to avoid and maybe don't quite enjoy driving with so much, they're aggressive, whatever it may be? Which drivers do you really look up to?
I mean, honestly, I think now, without sounding like an ass, it's like I'm one of the older drivers now, or getting to that point. So a lot of the guys I looked up to have retired at this point.
So people are looking up to you, though, aren't they?
I like to hope so. I've always tried to. I've always tried to at least be very open, because I felt like I didn't get a huge amount of honest advice, and I've never tried to go into the management role. I've been asked a lot of times to represent or manage drivers. I refuse to do it, because I think when you cross the line of money, I'm not sure the intentions are always the best.
Yes.
So I'd rather give free advice, and then people know it's genuine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, current drivers, I have a lot of friends I race against, which, gets awkward at times if we come in and we've done, damage to somebody else's race cars. But I definitely... I respect, I think, majority of the guys I race against. Good. There's a couple of drivers that you always know are going to be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Montoya was one of the hardest guys to drive against.
Yeah.
And even, he pretty much retired, came back to sports car racing last year, and, still a machine around the wheel. So probably one of the hardest guys to race against.
So I'm just trying to think which year it was. It was just prior to COVID. Alonso was at the Rolex.
Yep. Yeah.
That actually... I was so excited to go because I wanted to meet Alonso. What's it like to race against Alonso? I know he wasn't in the same bracket as you.
We were at that point.
Oh, really?
That was in. I think I was still in the Patron car at the time.
Okay, yeah.
I would say there's not many guys that have ever come along and instantly just been very good in a sports car.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that I think of as far as people that have impressed me jumping in a sports car. That was, and I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, he was very humble. I actually had never met him previous to that, and we literally were walking in the gate one day, and we'd recognized, he obviously saw I had a shirt on from a team that he was racing against. So he was very humble, which I don't know if I expected that either.
That's good.
So humble. He definitely got the opinion that he was understood that he was the new guy, which was a little weird. But you could tell, like, maybe he was just trying to, get his feet wet gently.
Well, I think like any profession, when you move from one, it's the same profession, but when you move, say, from lower management to upper management, if you're in a normal business environment, things are different, aren't they? And you've got to respect the people. You've got to earn your respect as well. You must have thousands and thousands of fans trying to get autographs, trying to talk to you. How does that kind of affect you on a race day? Is it just, hey, this is great, I love it? I know some people are a bit more standoffish.
It's not so bad, actually. I mean, again, I think I understand that I'm in the entertainment business, and my dad told me from a very young age, if he ever saw me be rude or walk past somebody or turn away a kid at an autograph, he would probably beat the living hell out of me. And so I've never done it. And I've seen a lot of drivers that, when I said before, guys that I grew up, with as a mentor or a hero, walking past a kid, with a Sharpie, and I would never ever do that. I always get time to stop and have a chat. But at the same time, we don't get, in sports car racing, we don't get the Formula One crowds, and we don't get the IndyCar crowds. I mean, if any driver complains in my industry of being overwhelmed by that, then they're probably just making that up.
That's interesting to say that. So, Ryan, how does somebody get hold of you or one of the coaches? What's the website again?
So racecarcoaches.com is the website where I have a group of guys on there.
Yep.
I think we have 70 or 80 coaches on there. They are all people that I either personally know or have been recommended. But then at the same time, I'm pretty active on social media.
Yep.
Try and reply to anybody that gets back to me.
So if somebody wants to follow you on social media?
I think I'm just all the standard Ryan DLs or the Ryan. I think a couple of them are underscores.
So just Google Ryan DL and bam, they can find
somewhere.
you. One thing I love about you is that you're super interactive with everybody. You're super friendly. We've met only a couple of times, and I feel like I know you really well. I really appreciate the time you've taken to come on the show. Hopefully, we've given the audience a little bit of insight to what you do, what your racing series is about, how literally. Someone who's just got a thought, I'd like to race, could get into this position that you're in. They don't necessarily need to come through lots and lots of different doors. They can go karting, they can get into a program and move up into this league a lot easier than Formula One or Indy. If you was a young boy starting out now, what would you change?
Well, it's so different now. There's so many more drivers now. That's part of the problem, and there's not really many more opportunities. So it's definitely difficult now, and I would hate to be trying to do it now.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that at this point in my career, I'm not still picking up the phone and calling people, but that's what you have to do, and that's what I did. Probably right up until 2010, 11. It's nonstop calling people or emailing people, annoying people.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I found in the US that was a lot different to Europe. Was Europe drivers don't connect directly with teams or owners. There's always a management involved.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And when I came to the States, that was something I noticed here that they didn't really respect that. They wanted to have one-on-one communication.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, and so I had a manager when I came here. I fired him the first year.
Yeah.
Then he sued me and I had to pay him off.
Oh.
And then
That's the American way.
Yeah, right. So, I think that's a big thing is persistency, and, it's not easy, but opportunities. I mean, even now I still hear of people racing go-karts and then all of a sudden, getting introduced to the right guy, before you know it, they're racing in, Formula cars or in GT cars, and, that's it. Coaching helps a lot as well. You meet a lot of, very, high net worth people, and, guys that want to know how they can go faster, and mainly they'll team up with a younger driver and move forward.
So you think the age of the driver now has got, because you were 17 when you started, I think, in sports
I was
car?
Sports cars. I was 21.
Was you really? So you think the age has gotten lower now? Because I know in Formula One it seems to be lower.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I look back on is, especially when my family were helping me race, which is while I was in Europe. I think if you'd asked my dad what would he do different, he would have said I would have went to the highest possible level and not wasted the money in between.
Got ya.
And
that's a good tip.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that you see a lot more of now when you see lots of current Formula One drivers who seem to skip steps.
Yes.
As long as you're fast enough and experienced enough, there's no reason to do every single step on the staircase.
Yeah.
If you have X amount of resources, then I would say now go as far as you can, as quick as you can.
Yeah. So the newcomer has got to get some seat time, get out there and impress people, get on the phone, email people, and maybe skip a series or two if they can.
Never ever turn away anything that's work. I got criticized a lot when I was 21, 20-ish, trying to make this sports car world, and I was driving everything.
Yeah.
I came in, won a couple of races, and all of a sudden the phone started ringing, and I got criticized for not being loyal to one discipline, whether it was prototypes or GTs.
Yeah.
I mean, I always used to say, I don't know if anybody will understand this other than you, a skip is, right? What do you call it? A dumpster?
Yeah, dumpster, yeah.
I always said I would drive a skip on wheels.
Yeah.
If it was competitive, and I got to race it. So, to me, drive everything, take every opportunity, make it work, whatever it is.
All right, last question. Favorite track, favorite car? It's two questions. I'm sorry.
Favorite track would be Le Mans in France. It's just so unique. It's fast, it's long, it's road, it's track, it's...
That one straight, it was at the
Molson Straight.
Molson Straight, how long is that?
Well, the whole track is, 8.5 or 8.6 miles.
Wow.
And it's mostly straights, other than a couple of really fast corners.
But that's the longest one, isn't it?
It is. They've cut it up now. It used to be one chicane, and then some cars were doing backflips. Looked great on TV, not so great for the drivers.
Taking off, yeah.
And then they put a second chicane in. So I've only ever driven it in the current configuration.
Yeah.
And then favorite car, I would say probably between two cars. The car I currently drive, which is a French car called an Oreca. Mm-hmm. Or in 2012, 13, and 14, I drove. It was a Honda open-top prototype. It was the last year of the open-top prototype cars. Yeah. And that was it was built by Acura. It was Acura's racing department. So
awesome. That
was a very cool car. My team owner from 2012, we won Le Mans in that car. He still has it in his garage, the one we won 12 with. Yeah. And 2014 was my first year at Tequila Patron. Yeah. And the owner of Tequila, or the ex-owner, still has that car.
Hey, that's awesome though. So, that's a credit to the car, isn't it? So
maybe they'll leave it to me if,
Who knows, Well, Ryan, thanks for coming on the show. I've learned a lot. Hopefully our viewers have learned a lot. I wish you all the very best for the rest of your career. This season, go and knock it out. Hope the car is better next time you're out. I know you'll be off to Sebring, so good luck with that. And hopefully we'll get to see you again. I'm a fan of yours, and I'm sure many people are after today, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is Greg Mann. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching and listening. If you need to get hold of me, it's 407-774-9858. If you need to look at property, go to my property management site, GoRent123.com. Appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the GMANN Show.